morning, everyone. Welcome to Readings in Philippine History subject. So this morning, we will be going to discuss Case Study 1, where did the first Catholic Mass take place in the Philippines. The popularity of knowing where the first happened in history has been an easy way to travelize history. But this case study will not focus on the significance of the first Catholic Mass in the Philippines, but rather use it as a historiographical exercise in the utilization of evidence and interpretation in reading historical events. So in this chapter, mas madadagdagan pa yung kaalaman nyo sa pag-alam kung ano pa nga ba yung mga naging journey ni Antonio Pigafetta after he circumnavigate the world kasama ni Magellan. Also, in this chapter, malalaman nyo rin kung ano yung mga nilalaman ng primary source Albo's log, primary source Pigafetta's testimony, and so on and so forth. Butuan has long been believed as the site of the first Mass. In fact, this has been the case for 3 centuries, culminating in the erection of a monument in 1872 near at Agusan River, which commemorates the expedition. The Butuan claim has been based on the rather elementary reading of primary source from the event. Noong unang panahon, ang Butuan ay isa sa mga lugar na pinaniniwalaan nila na dito daw naganap yung unang misa. Naguguluhan kasi yung mga tao noon kung saan nga ba talagang Limasawa naganap yung unang misa or the first Mass. Kasi ang alam nila, may dalawang Limasawa, which is yung Limasawa Leyte and Limasawa Butuan. Towards the end of 19th century and the start of 20th century, together with the increasing scholarship on the history of the Philippines, a more renounced reading of the available evidence was made, which brought to light more considerations in going against more acceptable interpretation of the first Mass in the Philippines made by Spanish and Filipino scholars. It must be noted that there are 2 primary sources that historians refer to identifying the site of the first Mass. One is the log that kept by Francisco Albo, a pilot of the one of Magellan ship Trinidad. He was one of the 18 survivors who returned with Sebastian Elcano on the ship Victoria after they circumnavigated the world. The other one was more complete account by Antonio Pigafetta, Primo Viago in Torno al Mondo, or First Voyage Around the World. Pigafetta, like Albo, was a member of Magellan's expedition and an eyewitness of the events, particularly of the first Mass. Sinasabi nila na there are 2 primary sources that historians refer in identifying the site of the first Mass. Ang unang primary sources ay nakalagay sa log or journal ni Francisco Albo. Si Francisco Albo ay isang piloto na isa sa Magellan ship Trinidad. Isa siya sa 18 survivors na nakaligtas kasama ni Sebastian Elcano on the ship Victoria after they circumnavigated the world. The other sources na mas kompleto na journal ay kay Antonio Pigafetta. Tulad ni Francisco Albo, si Antonio Pigafetta ay isang miyembro ng Magellan Expedition at isa sa mga witness particular na nangyari noong unang misa or first Mass. Primary source Albo's log. On the 16th of March 1521, as they sailed in the western course from Ladrones, they saw land towards the northwest, but owing to many shallow places, they did not approach it. They found letter that its name was Yunagan. They went instead that same day southwards to another small island named Suluan, and there they are poured. There they saw some canoes, but this fled at the Spaniards' approach. This island was at 9 2/3 degrees north latitude. Departing from those islands, they sailed westward to an inhabited island of Gada, when they took in a supply of wood and water. The sea around that island was free from shallows. Albo does not give the latitude of this island, but from Pigafetta's testimony, this seems to be Aquada or Hamonhon, at 10 degrees north latitude. From that island, they sailed westward toward named Silani that was inhabited and was known to have gold. Silani, or as Pigafetta calls it, Ceylon, was the island of the Leyte. Sailing southwards along the coast of that large island of Silani, they turn southwest to a small island called Mazava. That island is also a latitude of 9 and 2/3 degrees north. The people of that island of Mazava were very, very good. There, the Spaniards planted a cross upon a mountain top, and from there, they were shown 3 islands to the west and southwest, where they were told there was much gold. They shown us how the gold was gathered, which came in small pieces like peas and lentilla. From Mazava, they sailed northwards again towards Silani. They followed the coast of Silani in the northwest direction, ascending up to 10 degrees of latitude where they saw 3 small islands. From there, they sailed westward some 10 legues, and there they saw 3 islets where they dropped anchor for the night. In the morning, they sailed southwest from 12 legues down to a latitude of 10 and 1/3 degree. There, they entered the channel between 2 islands, one of which was called Matan, and the other was Subu. They sailed down that channel and then turned westward and anchored at the town or La Villa of Subu, where they stayed many days and obtained provision and entered into a peace pact with the local king. The town of Subu was on an east-west direction with the islands of Suluan and Mazava. But between Mazava and Subu, there was so many shallows that the boats could not go westward but has to go as they did in a roundabout way. It must be noted that in Albo's account, the location of Mazava fits the location of the island of Limasawa at the southern tip of Leyte, 9 degree 5/4 degrees north. Also, Albo did not mention the first mass, but only the planting of the cross upon a mountain top from which could be seen 3 islands to the west and southwest, which also fits the southern tip of Limasawa.
Antonio Pigafetta's testimony on the route of Magellan expedition. Who is Antonio Pigafetta? Pigafetta's eyewitness account is the most detailed and only surviving account of the first Catholic Mass in the Philippines, but there are different interceptions of his account on where it was held. According to Gabriel Alega, historian, said, Butuan had long been considered the site of the Mass. So, sabi daw ni Gabriel Alega, it is long been considered site of the Mass in Butuan. So, next. Who is the first Catholic in the Philippines? It was only later in the 16th century that the voyages of Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan, 1480-1521, first brought Catholicism to the archipelago, originally named Saint. So guys, si Magellan daw po yung first Catholic in the Philippines. So let's proceed in the Antonio Pigafetta's testimony on the route of the Magellan's expedition. On Saturday, March 16, 1521, Magellan's expedition sighted a high land named Samar, which has some 300 leagues westward of Landron Islands, or it is now called the Mariana Islands. On the second day, Sunday, March 17, 1521, the following day after sighting Samal Island, they landed on the other island, which was uninhabited and which lay to the right of the above-mentioned island of Zamal. There they set up 2 tents for the sick members of the crew and had a sow killed for them. The name of this island was Humunu or Homonhon. This island was located at 10 degrees north latitude. On the same day, Sunday, March 17, Magellan named the entire archipelago the island of Saint Lazarus. The reason being that it was Sunday in the Lenten season when the Gospel assigned for the Mass and the liturgical office was the 11th chapter of Saint John, which tells of the rising Lazarus from the dead. On the next day, Monday, March 18, in the afternoon of their second day on that island, they saw a boat coming towards them, with 9 men in it. An exchange of gifts was effected. Magellan asked for food supplies, and then the men went away, promising to bring rice and other supply in 4 days. There were 2 springs of water on that island of Homonhon, and they knew that there was some gold and indicators in it. So, Magellan renamed the island and called it Watering Place of Good Omen. After that, in Friday, March 22, at noon, the natives returned. Ito na yung sinabihan ni Magellan na in exchange of food supplies na magbalik sila in 4 days. So, this time, there were in 2 boats. Dalawa na yung boats nung sinabihan nung Magellan na exchange in food. And they bought food nga. Food supplies na hiningi ni Magellan. So, Magellan expedition stayed 8 days, 8, at Homonhon, from Sunday, March 17, to the Monday of the following week, March 25. So, next day, March 25, Monday. In the afternoon, the expedition weighed anchor and left the island of Homonhon. Umalis na sila doon sa island na inistayan nila in 8 days. In the ecclesiastical, this day, March 25, was the feast day of the Incarnation, also called the Feast of the Annunciation, and therefore it is called Our Lady's Day. On this day, as they were about to weigh anchor, an accident happened to Pigafetta. He fell into the water but was rescued. He attributed his narrow escape from death as grace obtained through the intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary on her feast day. The route taken by the expedition after leaving Homonhon was toward west-southwest between 4 islands, namely Senalo, Hiunangan, or misspelled by Hinunangan. Thus, it is easy to see what Pigafetta meant by sailing toward the west-southwest. They left Homonhon sailing westward toward Leyte, then followed the Leyte coast southward, passing between the island of Ibuson on their port side and Hinunangan Bay on their starboard, and then continue southward, then turning westward to Mazaua. And the next day, Thursday, March 28, 1521, in the morning of Holy Thursday, they anchored off an island where the previous night they had seen a light or a bonfire. That island lies in a latitude of 9 2/3 towards the Arctic Pole and in a longitude of 162 degrees from the line of demarcation. It's 25 leagues from the equator and it is called Mazaua. And the next day, Thursday, April 4, they left the island of Mazaua, bound for Cebu. They were guided thither by the king of Mazaua, who sailed in his own boat. Their route took them 5 islands, namely Ceylon, Bohol, Kanighan, Baybay, and Katighan. At Katighan, they sailed westward to the 3 islands of the Camotes group, namely Poro, Pasihan, and Ponson. Spanish ships were much faster than the native balanghay. Balanghay means a thing that excites the administration of the king of Mazaua. From the Camotes Island, they sailed southwards towards Zubu. On the next day, Sunday, April 7, at noon, they entered the harbor of Zubu, or it is called Cebu. It had taken them 3 days to negotiate the journey from Mazaua, northwards to the Camotes Island and then southwards to Cebu. It must be pointed out that both Albo and Pigafetta's testimonies coincide and corroborate each other. Pigafetta gave more details on what they did during their week-long stay in Mazaua. This is about the age of exploration.
Good day, everyone. So now, we will talk about Pigafetta and 7 days in Mazawa. March 28, Thursday, in the morning, Magellan and his crew anchored near an island where they had seen a light the night before a small boat called Boloto that has camped with 8 natives and as present to those natives on the Boloto. Magellan threw some trinkets to them and then paddled away. 2 hours later, the 2 larger boats, called Balanghay, has camped. The native king remained seated in his boat while the other native went up to the Spanish ship at Magellan's invitation. The Spanish ship went closer to the shore and re-anchored near the native king's village. This Thursday, March 28, was a Holy Thursday. March 29, Holy Friday. Magellan sent his slave interpreter to ask the king about food supplies, and he also said that they came as a friend, not as enemies. The king and his 6 or 8 men went up Magellan's ship, and the 2 men embraced. Another exchange of gifts was made. When they returned, they bring 2 members of Magellan's expedition as guests. One of them is Pigafetta. March 30, Saturday. Pigafetta and his companion spent the previous evening feasting and drinking with the native king and his son. Pigafetta and his companion took leave with their host and returned to the ship. March 31, Sunday. Early in the morning, Magellan sent the prize with some men to prepare for the Mass. Later in the morning, Magellan landed with 50 men and Mass was celebrated. Magellan and the Spaniard returned to the ship for the noonday meal. In the afternoon, they returned to plant the cross on the summit of the highest hill. Both at the Mass and planting of the cross were the King of Mazawa and the King of Butuan, summit of highest hill. Magellan then said that he wished to go to Zubu and to depart the following morning. The King of Mazawa said that he would conduct Magellan to Zubu, but he would first have to bring the harvest in. He asked Magellan sent him men to help with the harvest.
And that's all for today. Thank you.